Well, Jane explained growing the internet. When we grow the internet to reach more people, we want to make sure that we are also securing their connection from any threats. So I guess now Joseph Hall, our vice president and leading the Internet Strong project, will talk to us more about the strength of the internet. Joe, the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Joe Hall. Joseph Lorenzo Hall is the long form of my name. I've been with the Internet Society for about a year now. I come from a US-based digital rights nonprofit, the Center for Democracy and Technology. So for the past 10 years of my life, I did things like hacking voting machines, worrying about should drones have license plates and weird stuff like that. And now I'm squarely in the land of technical internet policy here at the Internet Society, and I could not have a better partner in crime than Jane Coffin, who just spoke. Next slide. So I am strong internet. Jane is internet growth. Together, those are the way we think about it. Internet Society is a little complicated. This figure does a good job of explaining how it all fits. When it comes down to it, our mission is really simple, right? That we want to make sure the internet is for everyone. And the way that we want to do that is work towards what we call an open, globally connected, secure, and trustworthy internet. To do that, we focus on building, promoting, and defending. And you can see building and defending are very strongly within either Jane or I's wheelhouse, but promotion, and even in some sense, when I talk about strong internet, people are like, what does that mean? Is that just security? It's security, it's privacy, it's trustworthiness, and it also is resiliency, which I share with Jane. Jane has a lot of interests in making sure that the networks that we're building are resilient networks and don't fall down all the time. Because what's worse than having no network? Having a flaky network? I'm not sure. Maybe having a flaky network is okay. And so we have 8 projects. I have 5 of them. There are 3 technical projects that I work on and 2 policy projects. And so we'll get into them. I'll be a little quick, Hannah, to see if we have, because by all means, the question and answer is like what makes it for us in terms of all this stuff. Just presenting it you is not it's of limited value compared to actually interacting with you. So next slide. So the first project on the policy side is something we call the Internet Way of Networking. If you have been paying attention to newsletters from us and things like that, you may have seen we launched something called the Internet Impact Assessment Toolkit. This comes from the project that we have called the Internet Way of Networking. The Internet Way of Networking, the whole idea here was that earlier on, the later part of last year, we recognized, look, we know at the Internet Society, in our community, chapters, special interest groups, organizational members, they know that the internet is special. What is so special about the internet? It's actually kind of hard to boil it down, right? We've had past work at the Internet Society thinking about things called the internet invariants. What are the things that we want to see on any internet? We extended this work this year by actually coming up with 5 critical properties of the internet. And the cool thing about these critical properties is you can use them sort of like a measuring tape. You can see to what extent proposals from local governments or even ideas from non-governmental entities like businesses that might reshape your local network. And you can use these 5 critical properties as a way of deciding, will these changes to the network result in the things that we care about with the internet? Will it allow what we call generativity, a platform that you can create sort of arbitrary things from? That's really important for creativity and what we've seen in the internet for 35 years or something like that. So we've launched this Internet Impact Assessment Toolkit. We're starting to try and sort of arm our chapters with the ability to use this tool to examine policy proposals. And so reach out if you want, if you're interested in that and haven't heard more about it, because it's a lot of fun and it's really rich, especially if you like to think about policy. Next slide. Thank you. The other policy project is all about encryption, specifically end-to-end encryption. And what we mean by end-to-end encryption is methods of encryption where the only people that could access the encrypted contents are the people involved in the communication. So the sender and the receiver in most cases. If you've been paying attention, end-to-end encryption is under threat. There are many, many countries that are arguing that we need backdoors in encrypted protocols and products that use encryption of various types. And we claim that's completely ridiculous. You can't backdoor the glue that, or the mortar that keeps the bricks of our digital society together, or you will be unsurprised when that thing falls apart, when someone finds a flaw or a bad guy finds a way to break through that back door. We have not been able to make back doors that just let good guys in. That's a fundamental problem of adding back doors to this stuff. This year, we have started what we call a global encryption coalition. Just like the internet is a network of networks, this global encryption coalition is a coalition of coalitions. We have two partners in this work, the Center for Democracy and Technology and another group called Global Partners Digital. And we're organizing people around the world in order to have the right kind of arguments, the tools, the data they need to show leaders and other people that if you mess with encryption, here is likely what's going to happen. And you're probably not going to like the world you live in if you start messing with encryption. Next slide. Yes, so to get into the technical projects, if you've been around the Internet Society for any amount of time, you may have heard of MANNERS. This is an acronym for Mutually Assured Norms for Routing Security. Routing security, like a lot of things on the internet, routing is completely insecure. The quickest way to explain it technically is to describe how the internet works. So the internet is made up of a bunch of networks, right? And each network announces, hey, if you want to get to this IP address, come over to me. They all announce things like that. The trick is these announcements that these networks make about how to get to certain IP addresses, completely insecure, not authenticated, not confidential. So we have seen cases where we've seen spoofing. For example, in the 2000s, Pakistan got really mad at YouTube for some reason. I forget exactly why. And they decided to announce the route to YouTube, which means all the traffic in the world came to Pakistan for YouTube. And it took Pakistan off the internet for about 24 hours because their networks can't handle that amount of traffic. That's an example of someone using the routing network in sort of a political way, not in a technical way. And so our work at MANNERS tries our best to use a normative sort of, hey, you should do a better job of keeping your networks clean. Please join us if you have a clean network, and we can make everyone else in the world who has unclean networks feel bad, because we won't be secure unless we start having a large number of networks start to practice these various aspects of what we call routing security. Next slide. Another technical project is around time security. People may not realize that the time that you get on your phone or on your desktop is what's called network time. Network time is sort of what the network thinks the time is, right? And unfortunately, just like with routing, you may see a pattern here. Time is completely insecure. It is not authenticated online, not confidential, none of those things. And so recently there has been a movement to secure time. The IETF recently published an RFC that specifies something called NTS, or Network Time Security. This is a way that we can have authenticated sources of synchronized time. And you might think, that sounds dumb. Why should I care about that? Well, if you think about it, on the floor of a factory, if you have robots that need to be synchronized within millisecond or even nanosecond precision, if one part of that factory gets bad time from a source of bad time, you may have really serious problems. You may have things crashing into each other. You may have people getting hurt. Increasingly, we really need to have very good authenticated sources of time, or very bad things can happen around the world. Even if it's just losing a ton of money, high frequency trading with millisecond kind of tolerances to make trade deals. There's a bunch of applications of this stuff. We've been working this year to set up a test bed, which means having a number of nodes that speak this secure time, so you can test clients and other kinds of software against these kinds of sources of time. Next slide. I only have one more slide. So the final project, technical project, is called Open Servers Everywhere, or Open Standards Everywhere. And the idea here is that we started to realize that the Internet Society runs a lot of computers and a lot of web servers, but they're all different. Why are they all different? And they all had some flaws, like they couldn't do this or they couldn't do that or whatever. And so we looked into it and realized, geez, it's kind of hard to have a standard set of web servers that just do the things you want them to do. And so we decided this year to take the time to actually clean up our own house. And we have produced documentation and actual reference implementations of 4 web servers. So Nginx and Apache, if you care, with or without CDN front ends, hosted options. The idea here being, we want you to be able to run the most modern protocols in the most secure possible way without having to think about it. And so this is now what we're running and how we configure our websites. We've reached out to chapters and say, hey, if you'd like your website to be more secure, here's a great set of a cookbook or how you can do those kinds of things. I think that's it. Let's see if I have another slide. I don't think I do. Next slide. Cool, that's it. And I think we have some time for Q&A, and I'll give it right back to Hannah.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. We had a few questions also in the chat. Khalid was asking, are these proposals about a mechanism to show the benefit of the internet in a simple way? Are there, proposals about a mechanism to show the benefits of the internet in a simple way?
Yeah, so I think you're talking about the internet way of networking. Right now, if you look at that material, it's pretty dense. It's made for nerds, both of the technical variety and of the sort of legal and policy variety. We're going to be spending a lot of time translating those materials into ways that are more intuitive for lay people, for example, and localizing them in different languages, including Arabic. So by all means, I'd really love it if you had a chance to dip in, and I'm happy to send you these materials. And if it's just totally incomprehensible to you, that's very useful for us to know, because we need to work on making it comprehensible. So let me know what if you get a chance to read these things, please feel free to reach out, hall@isoc.org, HALL@isoc.org. And that would be very useful to know which way to go in terms of making this kind of stuff more accessible to the people in your region or people you care about.
Yes, as we said earlier, Joe, I mean, we are here to answer any requests, and the website is there. So please, you can reach out to us, at any of these topics, and we will be ready to help. We had a suggestion. I'm just mentioning it. I guess Jane answered in the chat, to make a small guide that can show us how we can get involved with the project and what's the requirements for that, because people were especially asking about measurements. I don't know if you would like to add something, Jane, or?
I really like that, and I think that's a fabulous thing to do. And maybe we could even make it into a video for you so that you have it, and we would translate it with Nermina Khana. I was also thinking that a survey to ask some of the chapters some basic questions about the different local environment from an internet health perspective. And Joe, we'd want your brain on this too, from Strong and Health. That might be something we work with the Middle East team on as a beta test with the chapters, because if there's interest, we'd really like to see what we could do. And we'll talk to the other project leads too to see if there's more info we could get in there. So stay tuned. I really like this idea.
Great. And this year, as Nermeen mentioned in the chat, we are translating many of the documents into Arabic. So it makes it more accessible and easier, to everyone, for everyone to read and understand, because I know the language is quite hard. At least for me, when I read something from IWN, I cannot tell you how hard it is for me to understand it. So, well, we had enough, scientific terminology. We enjoyed the sessions. Excellent. But now we will try to have some fun. So we will give you a break, of course.
Now we have a hand from Ahmed Al-Sada.
Oh, I'm very sorry, Ahmed. I missed that. Go ahead, Ahmed.
No problem. I just sent the question on the chat. So my question is how to make the people from Middle East involved in IETF to know of the emerging things or emerging technologies like what already Joseph said about the time security. So this is the first time that I know this is a critical problem, maybe, but to get them more involved and to participate more in that. So what's the role of ISOC to get the people more engaged in that?
That's a wonderful question. So there's a few different ways to answer that. One is that we try to help people navigate the IETF. This is more of things that we do sort of in our personal capacity, because it can be really challenging to understand how it works. And for younger folks who aren't used to that culture, understanding how people interact, because it can be kind of weird. So we do that. We also have something called the IETF Policy Fellows Program, which is really aimed at government level officials to try and get them to understand what the IETF is, and that it's not sort of it's not a Wild West. You know, there's ways you can interact with the community. I do think that it's going to be easier. COVID has made it necessary to have IETF meetings, both the interim meetings between the big meetings and the big meetings themselves, completely virtually. And so we've been exploring virtualizing a lot of the stuff we do at IETF, because no one's going, right? No one's going to be there. And I think there's a good opportunity here to have sort of a window in the IETF for our chapter community. You know, like it's something the IETF chair does, Alyssa Cooper, who's awesome, is she'll do before the next meeting, here's some hot topics that are going to be happening at the next IETF meeting. We might want to think about, and this is just me thinking out loud, having something for our chapters that sort of talks about emerging ideas and technologies at the IETF, because the one thing that I think it's really helpful, and you had said this, sorry to be so long-winded, is that there are some things that are going to be disruptive. For example, DNS over HTTPS, and there's something else called the encrypted client hello, which will encrypt everything in a TLS session, in an encrypted internet session. Those are going to be somewhat disruptive to people who are doing filtering based on DNS and other kinds of things, or SNI. Sorry to get so complicated. So reach out to me. I have a lot of ideas, and this is the kind of thing we have a lot of people who know a lot about the IETF and can brainstorm ways to sort of make sure that our MENA chapters have that kind of information and know who to reach out to when they see something like, wow, what the heck is that? That seems really strange, because we can often help channel that kind of stuff. Thank you. Sorry to talk so long.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.